Okay, so you learned how to solve systems of equations two ways already. One, graphing, the other one was substitution. We are now going to learn a process called elimination, which is my personal favorite, and I think it's the easiest. So I have your first problem written down. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it into an addition problem. Okay? Before we do that, we need to make sure that one of the x's or the y's have a positive and negative of the same number. So if you see, our x's have a negative 4x and a positive 4x. So we have a positive and negative of the same number. So now we can make it into an addition problem. Negative 4x plus 4x is going to be 0x. And then negative 4y plus 16y is going to be a positive 12y. We do 8 times 8 plus negative 20, which is negative 12. So our 0x, you can write it or you don't have to write it. So that can kind of go away. So if you look here, we have 12y equals negative 12. So we divide by 12 to get our y by itself. We have y equals negative 1. Now just like substitution, we are now going to plug it into one of the equations. And I don't care which one, and you can pick whichever one you want. I'm going to do the first one, negative 4x minus 4 times negative 1 equals 8. So to simplify it, negative 4 times negative 1 is going to be negative 4x plus 4 equals 8. So when I divide by, or minus 4, I get negative 4 x equals 4. Divide by negative 4, x equals negative 1. So my answer, I'll write it over here, negative 1, negative 1. So that is the process of elimination. Alright, so now let's do another one. So if you see, your next example, we have 8x minus 4y equals 1, and negative 14x plus 4y equals negative 3. So when you look, you should see a positive and negative of the same number again. So when that happens, we can just add. The next problem, we'll have to do something before we add, but we can do the same thing again. So we have 8x minus 14x. Whoops. Drop my pencil. So when we add, we get negative 6x. Here we have a 0 again, and you can put in the 0 or not. And that equals negative 2. So when I divide by negative 6, x equals 1/3, or 0.333. Either one works. So now, when I have that answer, I'm going to plug that into one of the problems. I'm going to do it in the first one again. So now I have 8 times 0.333 minus 4y equals 1. And this is where your calculator will be helpful. So when you do 8 times 0.333, you get 2.664 minus 4y equals 1. Now I'm going to subtract that 2.664. So 1 minus 2.664 is going to be negative 4y equals negative 1.664. Divided by negative 4. Y is going to equal 0.416. So sometimes these numbers are not going to be as nice. So my answer is going to be 0.333 and then 0.416. So you do it the same way. So now you just have to rely on your calculator more than you would just doing all the math in your head, but it's the same process. Okay, so now we have our third example. And so this one, we see we don't have a positive and negative of the same number. We only have a 6 and a 3, and then a 4 and a negative 5. So I'm going to look at my x's. If you see a 6, is there a way that you can make 3 be a negative 6? And there is. You need to multiply by negative 2. And you're going to multiply that whole equation. So I'm going to make it negative 6x plus 10y equals negative 42. Now I'm going to get rid of that whole equation in the middle, and I'm going to make this a addition problem again. So if you see, we have 6x, negative 6x, that becomes a 0. So you can write the 0 or you don't have to. And then we have a 4 plus 10, which becomes a plus 14y. And we have a negative 42. So in order to solve, we divide by 14. So y is going to equal negative 3. Now, remember, we're going to plug it in. And you can plug it into now either 3 equations. You have the 6x plus 4y equals 0. You have the 3x minus 5y equals 21. Or you have the negative 6x plus 10y equals negative 42. I'm going to do it to the first one. So we have a 6x plus 4 times negative 3 equals 0. So then we simplify. 6x minus 12 equals 0. We add 12. 6x equals 12. We get x equals 2 once we divide. And so our answer is 2, negative 3. So that is how we do a problem when we have to multiply so we can get our positive and negative of the same number. So let's do one more. So let's do our last example, 2x plus 3y equals 19. And we have our 3x plus 5y equals 31. So we see that we don't have any numbers that are the same, and we actually don't have any one equation that we can multiply. So this one, we're going to have to multiply both equations by something. So if you see 3 and the 2, you can multiply one by 3, the other one by negative 2, and we get 6 and negative 6. So you can do that with your y's. You could have multiplied the top equation by 5, the bottom equation by negative 3, and it still would have worked. Okay? So now let's make new equations. So we have 6x plus 9y equals 57. We have a negative 6x minus 10y equals negative 62. So now you see we have our positive and negative of the same number, and we made sure we multiplied to every term. Okay? When you distribute, you got to distribute to all three terms. So now we are going to add. So this becomes a 0. We have a negative y. And then when we add negative 62 plus 57, we get negative 5. So y would equal 5 when you divide by negative 1. So now, when I plug it in, to my first equation. Now I'm going to do my first equation. Now you have 4 equations you can multiply it in for. But I'm going to do my 2x plus 3 times 5 equals 19. So now I have 2x plus 15 equals 19. And I have 2x. If you subtract 15, you get a 4. So my x is going to equal 2. So my answer is 2, 5. So that is how we multiply with 2 equations. You have to find a number that you can multiply both of them to be a positive and negative of the same number. So the top one we multiply by 3, the bottom we multiply by negative 2. And as you see, there's multiple ways that you can multiply to get 2 different equations to satisfy that. So now you try some on your own.